Welcome to Arts Alive, the arts programme, here in the Victorian splendour of Southport. We're here in the lovely Wayfarers Arcade, and we're going to look at an innovative arts project here. Come and look. Anton, we're here in your wonderful gallery. Thank you very much for appearing on Arts Alive with us.
Oh, thank you very much for coming to do a feature on us.
Do you know, I have to confess, I didn't know that there was an arts project here. How long have you been here?
Oh, we set up here on the 12th of January, so only a few days. This actual unit is permitted for use by quite a few art groups in the area.
So, Art for Macmillan, when did that start?
Well, I first took part in an exhibition in aid of Macmillan Cancer Support, I think in 2009, but I didn't organise it. It was in Portland Hall Spa, which is on Portland Street in Southport. I took part in another one in 2010, and then I think another one, and that was before I set up Art for Macmillan Cancer Support. And so many people told me that it was such a great cause because I didn't actually know much about Macmillan when I first took part in an exhibition in aid of Macmillan, and people said they liked Macmillan Cancer Support because it had definite aims and views, results that they could see. So I thought, well, I'll carry on doing it. It was very gratifying knowing that I was helping people in such a definite way.
So you've got quite a few local artists involved here. How does that work? Do they sell their works and then give it to the fund? How does the system work?
Well, you just get to know them, and they're all very nice, so they agree to join in. But with having been on the scene, the art scene in the Northwest for quite a few years now, I've got to know quite a lot of artists, and we've got a group now that are very dedicated to taking part in exhibitions in aid of Macmillan Cancer Support. Yeah, and they all come along, and sometimes we get other artists in that we don't know from kind of further afield, some from London. We even had one from Russia. But this is the kind of elite few who do the demos for Macmillan Cancer Support.
And how about customers coming in? Do people come in and watch the art being created?
Yes, because our artists love to demonstrate their skills, and they've got such a variety of skills. There are craft workers, people working on painting ceramics, people working on fabrics, watercolour artists, people who work in a very thick, dense style of painting. People who do landscapes, portraits, all different styles of art and craft taking place, and people find it very appealing.
So quite a range of activities really, not just art.
You're right, not just art. If we manage to get a premises which is large enough, we also stage music, poetry, literature and storytelling, and if it's very large, we get dance troupes in as well.
Well, this is quite a cosy place. I remember this being a rather nice cafe. I would think this is ideal. Perhaps you need more space, ideally, would you?
Yes, we're always looking for space. You see, because we rely on landlords and property owners being very charitable and giving us the spaces that we need while they're vacant, it also means that we have to move out as soon as somebody comes along who wants to pay rent or who can pay rent. This moving out is useful in some ways because it means we set up somewhere else, so another group of people or another community are permitted to see our work, but then it's also like moving house. It can get a bit much at times.
And also what I can see is it's quite a showcase for your artists as well.
Yes, it is. We do work very hard at showcasing work by local artists. And as I said, we have our kind of core membership who get priority. They get a good few pictures on the wall, and then we have visiting artists who will try out with a couple of pieces, and everyone's welcome. Sometimes there's a donation required. If we take on a premises which requires things like business rates being paid and utility costs to cover, then everybody has to pay a hanging fee.
You've got a multitude of different activities here. You see, you've got sculpture and music and poetry. What sort of people have you had here doing playing and singing for you?
Well, we've had a great amount of support from the Southport Writers' Circle, who have done a number of poetry readings in a few of our venues over the years. And yeah, that was fantastic. They're guaranteed to bring in a crowd, so always welcome them coming.
When can people come and see it? Well, when are you open during the week?
Our exhibition at Wayfarers Arcade is open daily. On weekdays, it's 10 till 4:30, and at weekends, 10 till 5.
Well, shall we have a look at the other artists here, see what they're up to?
Yeah, I think they'd like that.
Walter, you're the abstract man.
Well, yes, I do some abstracts, obviously.
So, you've got an interesting technique here. It seems to be very much involved in lots of paint.
Yes, I do. Well, I've always loved using loads of paint. I usually do layer upon layer upon layer. Now, with this sort of thing here, what to do, prepare the background first, give it a good brush of colours, and then what to do is I flick the paint on. So,
do I have to stand back?
Well,
am I okay here?
It might be a good idea. Yeah, so if you watch this, you see. Now we get these beautiful different effects. So you see, you get splatted, and then what I can do? I can do them across that way, or flick on the bottom. And sometimes what you do is
It's a wonderful effect.
just a little dab.
Oh, you actually put the paint on with a brush, just to be different.
Well, just to be different, yes. It gives a little leaf effect, you see. We can just put it like that, and sometimes you get really good effects. So one across the bottom, there.
Do you know, I'm going to let you get on with this. Having escaped, having been covered in paint, this is the safe zone of the room. We're here talking to John West. John, you're the watercolour expert here.
Well, yes, I paint in watercolours. That's what I do. Yes.
So what is it you're doing now?
I'm just doing a simple scene of a coastal scene, really, in a very loose sort of fashion.
I noticed you put a lot of water on the paper first.
Yeah, yes.
That's essential.
It isn't essential, but in this particular painting, it makes everything blend easier. So when you're trying to get a loose sky, as this one is here, that you like that, it's a sort of a way of doing it. You wet the paper out, and then you can add your colours, strong colour onto the paper, and it just dissolves and blends.
It makes a lovely impressionistic effect.
It does. That one, which I did earlier, is one of Glencoe, and it's in a sort of, to get the mistiness overall, it's done very much wet onto a wet surface sort of thing, so it dissolves and becomes misty.
So what's the next step? What are you going to do now?
The next step of this is let some of that dry out now. You need to let it dry off. What I'll probably do is put a little of the sky colour into the water, which is going to be water down here.
What about this idea of having art for Macmillan? This must give a terrific showcase for someone like yourself.
Oh, it does, and it's a showcase. The nice thing about it, in a way, is whilst we like to stay in a premises for a length of time, by moving to various premises, we do cover a lot more people. You know, you get the traffic going through, and lots of people, they'll stop and come and have a look because of its Macmillan, and it works very well as a benefit to us, but also as a benefit to Macmillan. And it gives us the satisfaction that knowing what we're doing is doing something worthwhile, rather than just doing something purely as a means of making money, which, you know, most people who are involved in the arts don't make a lot of money anyhow. So it's you're doing something for Macmillan. You're doing something for a different reason.
Well, very worthwhile. I think it's fascinating watching any expert at work. We'll leave you to it.
Thanks very much.
And of course, an organisation like this couldn't exist without someone looking after the books and the organisation. We've got that very person here. We've got Pam Wormsley. So what do you actually do to help this organisation, Pam?
Well, like the title says, it's secretarial and the treasurer. And it's quite a lot of work because we're very busy, which is lovely. So many people are affected by cancer, and Macmillan supports so many. And it's just keeping Macmillan's name there. We're the Southport Fundraising Committee, and we've been doing it for 16 years.
Wonderful work. Wonderful work. How many people do you have in your team?
Well, the committee is probably about 10 people, and there's the chairman, Val, and myself, and the others do jobs as I need or whatever, and they just help as they can go along. We do a lot of in-store collections. That's good networking, and we meet people who come and say, you're marvellous to my mum, my dad, my aunt, my uncle. I haven't needed you yet, or I've been through it. And we learn a lot, and we can tell them of the new services that Macmillan is providing. And Macmillan is 104 years old, so it's got a lot of experience.
Pam, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
After the break, we're going over to have another one of our 10 Minutes at the Tate. Interesting dual programme based on the artwork of Louise Bourgeois and Barbara Hepworth. See you then. Welcome back to Arts Alive, the arts programme. Well, in our 10 Minutes at the Tate this time, we're going to feature two female artists, very, very different. One of them who portrayed all the sad things of life, loneliness, despair, and the other one who used very much the space in which the art is portrayed as much as part of the work itself. Louise Bourgeois and Barbara Hepworth, two remarkable artists. Come and see.
When we talk about modern art, we often talk about people from Europe, we often talk about France, we often talk about Paris particularly, we often speak about America as well in the middle of the 20th century when we're talking about Jackson Pollock. Perhaps sometimes we should remember that there was a very vibrant British art scene throughout the 20th century, and Barbara Hepworth was one of the main figures among the whole British art scene. Not only was she a famous British artist, but also Europeans looked to her art. Mondrian was famously kind of in touch with Ben Nicholson, her husband, and with Barbara Hepworth. The whole St Ives group becomes a very interesting, vibrant scene with Ben Nicholson and Barbara Hepworth among them. Also a very London scene as well develops in the 20th century in Britain as well. They're looking abroad, but a lot of people abroad are beginning to look to Britain as well, and I think sometimes we forget that. When you look at a sculpture like this, again, you might think this is abstract, strange, modern art, but you could also look at it and think it's very similar to very old art again. It's very similar to stone circles that we might see, for example. I often think if Stonehenge was built yesterday, people would think it was a modern art monstrosity. But because it was built centuries ago, people think, oh yes, national heritage. So I think there's a certain similarity with that and Barbara Hepworth. Barbara Hepworth, what she was interested in, among other artists as well, such as Henry Moore, for example, just as we've talked about painters bringing out the qualities of the material that they're using, rather than fighting with the material and trying to change it into something else, a lot of painters and a lot of sculptors were trying to bring out the quality of the actual material that they're working with. In this case, we're talking about bronze. If you look at other Barbara Hepworth sculptures, such as her wooden sculptures, such as her stone carvings, for example, she's trying to show something about the material rather than turn the material into something else, like a statue of a man, if you want to think of it in that way. With bronze, what she would have done here, originally in 1937 to 1938, she would have made a plaster model with her hands, and it would be a plaster, handmade kind of sculpture. Eventually in 1963 it was cast. So when you cast a sculpture, what you then do is put a kind of mould, if you like, around the plaster model. Then you take away the plaster mould. It's a bit like making a lolly ice, if I can put it that way. When you make a lolly ice, you kind of pour your juice into a cast, you then put it in the freezer, then you take the cast away and there's the shape of the lolly ice. Well, that's something similar to bronze. It's hot bronze that goes into the cast, and eventually when the bronze cools down, we can then take away the cast, and this is what's left. And some people might say it looks very similar to a lolly ice in that way as well. But there was something else that she was interested in as well. The greenness of the bronze here is interesting. You may have noticed when you walk around Liverpool, there are many statues that turn green in the weather as a kind of natural process. Well, what Henry Moore was interested in, and Barbara Hepworth, or Dame Barbara Hepworth as we should call her, she got interested in actually turning the bronze to this green shade, this green colour, as part of the casting process. I talk of it as if it's an abstract sculpture, and it is an abstract sculpture, but also I think there's something slightly figurative about it. There's something to do with the human body. The height of the sculpture, especially on this little plinth here, is similar to a human height. It's almost more interesting sometimes, as well as looking at the sculpture, is to look at other people looking at the sculpture. And it seems to bring out the quality, the figurative quality of the sculpture there. And then it has a kind of, if you like, a kind of mysterious sort of human effect, that mysterious quality. I don't know if you remember the monolith in 2001: A Space Odyssey. There's this kind of abstract object that just has a mysterious kind of enigmatic presence. And I think that's what this sculpture is after as well, but here it relates to us on our size and our scale. Like the Barbara Hepworth, most of the art in this section somehow or other relates to the body or relates to the human figure one way or another. Louise Bourgeois here, she is fascinated by the body, the human body, but also in terms of how we might think of the male body or the female body, how the body is a kind of part of nature, that it gives birth to another life, that the body is a living thing, but then it can create another living thing, the fact that we nurture living things. How do we think about women's bodies? How do we think about men's bodies? How do we think about the body in relation to nature? Do we think of the woman as a mother? Does the mother, we think of nature and mother, we often call nature Mother Nature, so there's this kind of birth and rebirth constantly. She's fascinated by all of this, and sometimes she's very critical of our approaches to this as well. In this piece, she's really relating how we think of the idea of perfection in nature and perfection in the human body, and questions our notions of perfection. The idea of topiary, or the art or craft of topiary, of improving on nature, is something that fascinates her. You know, you've got this beautiful tree or this beautiful bush, but you want to make it or sculpt it into the shape of something else, to make it into a more perfect bush or a more perfect tree. The idea of our own bodies being seen in nature as well. What do we mean by the perfect body or the perfect physical specimen? It brings up very uncomfortable ideas when we start talking like that. It brings up ideas, Hitler's ideas of the Aryan race and all that. A lot of the figures, the human figures in this series, are often disabled or have body parts missing. And sometimes body parts have been replaced by crutches or by little implements that might help the body to stand up. So when I talk to these people, I enjoy talking to these people with all kinds of different people and different types of groups, but especially groups who are disabled, who we've kind of thought about the presentation of the body and what we think about bodies in our culture generally. I think also with Louise Bourgeois, of course, she's a woman artist. Now, normally when we talk about art, we're normally talking about men. We're often talking about dead white males, normally. And I think Louise Bourgeois is one of the earliest pioneering woman artists. She's very aware that normally the relationship between men and women in art is the male painter, if you like, the male master, and the female muse, the female model, which is often the relationship in art going back through the centuries. That's true of art, but it's also true of glamour. It's true of Page 3 and The Sun. It's true of models and how they model. You know, when we look at, just have a look at the newsage and see how many females are being judged by their bodies, just woman presenters. How many women get judged on the amount of cellulite they've got in their legs in these magazines. So we're surrounded by ideas of what bodies should or shouldn't be. This whole series, which are kind of prints and screen prints, sometimes she's mixed the body with nature. So you've got a body that might turn into a tree, or a tree that turns into a body. She's almost a kind of surrealist, really. She comes out of that surreal generation. But I think she's so much more than a surrealist as well, because she only recently died. You may know her more famous works, for example. There was the huge, massive spider in Tate Modern a few years ago when Tate Modern opened. And also she made these huge slides. She's extremely influential as well. Tracy Emin, the famous British woman artist, looks to Louise Bourgeois as a key influence on her work as well. Tracy Emin similarly comes from quite a difficult background, a difficult family background. Louise Bourgeois had quite a difficult family background as well in her childhood as well. So a lot of her art kind of references that as well. So I think she brings up a lot of things about the human condition and about what it means to be a woman, what it means, what do we do with our bodies, and how we address nature and how we depict nature in art, how we depict the body, how we depict men and women in art, and what that relationship is between nature and men and women and our bodies.
So there we are, work by two remarkable women, Louise Bourgeois, Barbara Hepworth. Very different. Anyway, come and join us next time on Arts Alive, the Arts Programme.